Let's talk about data. It's everywhere, right? In today's world, businesses are swimming in it. But here's the billion-dollar question. How do you turn that absolute flood of information into a real competitive advantage? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on data analytics and show you exactly how smart companies transform raw, messy numbers into their most valuable asset. Let's dive in.
Does this sound familiar to you? Your company is collecting a mountain of data on literally everything. Every single sale, every click, every customer interaction. But what's it all for? A lot of the time, it just sits there, this huge untapped gold mine. You're basically drowning in data, but you're thirsty for the actual insights that can move the needle. So how do you fix this?
The solution is all about building a bridge. And data analytics, that's the bridge. It connects the chaotic world of raw data to the clear, actionable strategies you need to make smart decisions. Think of it as the engine that powers a modern business. It's what takes you from relying on gut feelings to making calls based on cold, hard facts.
Okay, to really get a handle on how this works, let's use an analogy. Think of a data analyst as a doctor for a business. A good doctor doesn't just guess at what's wrong. They follow a very clear process to diagnose the problem. And this journey, from symptom to cure, can be broken down into 4 distinct levels of insight, with each one building on the one before it.
So what's the very first thing a doctor does? They assess the symptoms, right? That's exactly what descriptive analytics is. It's all about looking into the past, digging into historical data, to get a crystal clear picture of what has already happened. It's like taking a patient's vital signs, their temperature, their blood pressure. It's the essential baseline for everything else. And this really is the foundation of the entire process. So, for example, an e-commerce company might pull up a dashboard and see, whoa, our revenue jumped by 15% last quarter. Now that's a great what, but it's not the full story. In fact, it immediately makes you ask the next, more important question.
And that question is, why? Why did it happen? This brings us to Level 2, Diagnostic Analytics. Our doctor is now moving past the symptoms and is starting to investigate the root cause. This is all about drilling down, slicing and dicing the data to figure out what's really driving the trends you're seeing.
So let's go back to that e-commerce store. Alongside that awesome 15% revenue growth, they noticed something weird. The average amount of money people spent per order actually went down. So a diagnostic analysis might dig in and find that a new free shipping campaign they launched was the culprit. It got more people to buy, but they were making smaller purchases. Aha! Now we have a cause.
Okay, so the doctor knows the symptoms and the cause. What's next? The prognosis. Once you understand the past and why things happened, you can start to make some really educated guesses about the future. And that's predictive analytics. It's all about using historical patterns to forecast what's probably coming down the pike. Using this, our e-commerce company could look at all the trends and predict that, hey, next quarter's sales are on track to hit $2.5 million. Now, this isn't just a wild guess. It's a data-informed forecast. And it's incredibly valuable because it lets them prepare everything from inventory to staffing for the demand they know is coming.
Knowing the diagnosis and the prognosis is powerful stuff for sure, but the real goal, the reason we do all this, is to figure out the treatment plan. And this brings us to the highest, most valuable level of all, prescriptive analytics. This is where we take everything we've learned and use it to recommend specific actions to get the best possible outcome.
And so, here's our data doctor's final prescription for the store. First, pump more money into the mobile marketing budget to lean into that growth. And second, introduce some product bundles to help get that average order value back up. See, it's a clear, straightforward, data-driven plan to win. So, we've covered the 4 levels of insight, but you might be wondering, how do analysts actually do all this stuff? Well, it's not magic, I promise. It's actually a very structured, repeatable 6-step process that can turn pretty much any business problem into a business solution. It all starts, and I mean all of it, by defining a very specific question. You don't ask, how are sales? You ask, which of our marketing channels gave us the best ROI last quarter? From there, you collect your data, and then you get to what is often the hardest part, cleaning it. Analysts can spend up to 80% of their time just getting the data ready. Only then can they analyze it, visualize it, and finally tell the powerful story the data is trying to tell them. Okay, theory is great, but let's see how this whole thing comes together in the real world. I want to walk you through a quick case study. Let's call it a retail rescue story, to show how this process can solve a really big, messy business problem. So here's the scene. You've got a retail chain with 50 stores, and overall, sales are just flat.
But the leadership team knows the real story is way more complicated. Some stores are absolutely crushing it, while others are just bleeding money. They have one critical business question. Why?
So they jump into descriptive analytics, and they quickly uncover a pretty startling fact. Just look at this. The top 20% of their stores, just 10 locations, were generating a massive 40% of the company's total revenue. Meanwhile, the bottom 30% of their stores were only chipping in a tiny 8%. This visual just makes the huge performance gap totally impossible to ignore. All right, now for the diagnostic part, figuring out the why. By comparing the rockstar stores to the struggling ones, the analysts found some really specific actionable issues. Turns out, the struggling stores weren't just unlucky, they had outdated layouts, they didn't have self-checkout, their products didn't match what the local neighborhood wanted, and some of them even had major parking problems.
With the problems identified, the predictive analysis delivered a pretty grim forecast. It showed that if the company did absolutely nothing, those bottom 15 stores were on track to lose another 12% in revenue next year alone. This created a huge sense of urgency. They had to act, and they had to act fast.
And that brings us to the prescription. Armed with all this evidence, the analytics team recommended a clear, multi-part strategy. They said, let's modernize the store layouts, let's tailor the products to the local customers, let's retrain the staff, and for those 2 stores with the terrible parking, let's just relocate them.
And the payoff, it was incredible. The stores that they modernized saw an 18% increase in sales in just 6 months. I mean, that is a fantastic result, and it just proves the immense value and return on investment you get from following a data-driven approach.
What a powerful story, right? So what does it actually take to get these kinds of results? You might think it's all about being a math genius, but really it's about having a unique blend of skills and a disciplined way of looking for answers.
To be really successful in analytics, you need 2 different toolkits. On the one hand, you need the technical chops, things like SQL to pull data, and tools like Tableau or Power BI to visualize it. But just as important, if not more so, are the business skills. You have to understand the industry, think critically, and most importantly, you have to be able to tell a compelling story with the data. And these 5 principles are really the key to making it all work. Number 1, always start with a business goal. 2, always question your data. Don't just assume it's perfect. 3, remember that context is everything. 4, visualize your findings thoughtfully. And finally, number 5, turn your analysis into a compelling story that makes people want to act. That is how you drive real, meaningful change.
We've seen how analytics can transform data from being a liability, just something you store, into a massive strategic advantage. It gives you a clear roadmap from a problem to a solution. So I'll leave you with this thought. In your work, your hobbies, or whatever you're interested in, what is the one critical question that you think data could finally help you answer?